What's crappin', Drew? I'm back and I got a microphone stand, so I'm making baby steps. Today we're going to talk about smart meters and whether or not they're sabotaging your life from the backyard. Back in the 1990s, most people regularly allowed strange men to creep through their backyards once a month or so as they did the dishes and folded laundry. But these weren't exercises in weird Craigslist role-playing. These unassuming visitors were utility company meter readers who trekked through harsh weather conditions and often ran from dogs and lonely housewives to collect data from your gas, water, and electricity meters. For years, field technicians hand-jammed readings on clipboards and returned them to the office for processing, which determined what you owed for that month. Later, mobile data terminals replaced pen and paper, but utility companies continued the rounds. Sadly, like milkmen and elevator operators, and most recently grocery store cashiers, the North American meter reader is on the verge of extinction as smart meters have dutifully taken their posts in backyards around the world. But why this change? Utility companies win as they can ping homes multiple times a day to boost usage accuracy, and of course they no longer have to pay people to traipse around town. Yet, as with most new technologies, consumers have concerns about privacy, cybersecurity, and even physical health as these digital devices emit personal data and radiation. But is this paranoia, or are there valid concerns here? Grab your hard hat and orange vest, and let's head into the 21st century backyard to see what these smart meters are really up to. Okay, firstly, how do these smart meters work exactly? Some smart meters transmit data usage via radio frequency signals, while others use cellular networks, broadband connections, or even over existing power lines with power line communication, or PLC as they call it. Smart devices send data incrementally. It could be every 15 minutes, 30 minutes, every 60 minutes, depending on where you are and how your utility company rolls. Once received, the gas or power company process data in various ways that benefit their organization as well as consumers. As with any smart technology, companies and services promise to trade convenience for data, and here's how they do it. Okay, number 3, accurate billing. Human meter readers manually recording data in terminals open up the opportunity for human errors such as fat fingering an entry or misreading a dial, especially when they're in a rush or tired. Even with flawless recording, manual data collection provides only a brief snapshot of utility usage, as technicians they used to only come about once a month or so, if I'm not mistaken. But smart meters, in addition to being fat finger free, transmit far more frequently, ensuring customers pay for exactly what they use. Is this a graveyard? Number 2, real-time data. When integrated with advanced analytics systems and in-home displays, smart meters enable customers to view their usage in real time. This allows people to better manage their energy consumption during high-demand periods, such as cooling the house in the summer or keeping the furnace blazing in the winter. Those who invest in high-energy or in energy-efficient appliances or reduce usage by insulating their windows, for example, can see exactly how their efforts have paid off by reviewing day-to-day or week-to-week or month-to-month reports. Okay, number 1 is improved customer service. You know, back in the day, troubleshooting issues usually meant scheduling home visits with the utility company, which required taking the day off because they said they'd be over between 8 and 5, and of course they would show up about 4:45. With smart meters, utility technicians can remotely analyze data and identify and diagnose issues, which eliminates the need for you to clear your schedule. Oh, I had another one in here. Disregard the countdown. This is number 1, not that it matters. But lastly, and more importantly, is critical care. Of course, all of us rely on the grid for water, gas, and to keep our food cool and homes warm, but some people need power more than others, such as people who depend on electrical medical equipment, such as ventilators, dialysis machines, or CPAP machines. They all benefit from a smart grid because they're prioritized over other customers during emergencies. For example, power companies can automatically flag critical care accounts, as they call them, to alert them when smart meters detect voltage dips or outages. That way humans or automated systems can then trigger priority restoration, where crews reroute power to select homes or facilities before life-preserving equipment fails. Okay, let's switch over to concerns. Have some bean water. All that stuff we talked about sounds great, but as with Real ID or AI or robotics, these conveniences come with a catch. Here's what people aren't so sure about these new and improved smart meters. Number 3, privacy. Before smart meters, utility companies could only make vague estimations about how we lived our lives based on our usage. But with constant digital monitoring from smart meters, this additional data paints a far more vivid picture of how we go about our daily routines. Especially when integrated with AI and what's not anymore. They know exactly when you wake up, go to bed, take a shower, your preferred room temperature, so on and so forth. Not that these utility companies give a rip about these mundane details of our lives, but when such data is collected, it becomes potentially available to unauthorized users or the government. Number 2, cybersecurity. When privacy is a concern, cybersecurity typically is not far behind, and it's not here. Whenever we transmit data, especially wirelessly, it's vulnerable to cybersecurity threats such as data stealing hackers or denial of service attacks. Bad actors may seek to gain information on a particular individual, business, or organization, or compromise the grid by reporting altered readings. Let me get up in here. When cybercriminals target banks, private companies, or government entities, they often gain access to sensitive information, including social security numbers, passwords, or credit card details. If they can gain access to your utility usage, it's just more information to build more detailed citizen profiles or potentially steal identities. Okay, lastly, health. This is where most of the controversy lies, because smart meters emit the R word, radiation. Let's do a quick science lesson. Of course, I am not an expert in any of this, and if you have questions, you can go to the release notes, or the description as some call it, and find the written version of this video essay, and you can see all the links to the research. Everything from your TV to nuclear bombs emit radiation. We determine this danger by the wavelength frequency. According to NASA, quote, the electromagnetic spectrum is in the range of all types of electromagnetic radiation. Yes, that includes radio frequencies. Here is an illustration to help. So the higher the wavelength frequency, or farther to the right of the illustration, the more dangerous that wavelength is. And most utility companies will claim that the amount of radiation emitted from smart meters is extremely low, or far to the left of this illustration, and that there's no evidence to suggest they pose a health hazard. The FDA analyzed data and found that there's not enough evidence to suggest that RF radiation causes cancer. However, the International Agency for Research on Cancer, or IARC, classified radiation as, quote, possibly carcinogenic to humans, based on a potential link in at least one study between cell phone usage and the specific type of cancer. A major problem here with RF is that humans haven't been exposed to such radio waves long enough to understand the long-term effects, not to mention we're increasingly exposed to radiation elsewhere, such as with cell phones, microwaves, what have you, cars now, making it difficult to pinpoint hazardous sources. For example, somebody living in a rural area with a smart meter that transmits data over a power line is going to be subject to far less radiation than somebody living in New York City in an apartment building with a bank of 200 of them opposite their bedroom wall that's emitting RF signals every 15 minutes. Okay, let's wrap this up with next steps. We could easily swap out the smart meter title for this post with cell phones, computers, or electric vehicles, what have you. It's all kind of a similar argument. They all provide convenience and safety, but they all expose consumers to privacy and cybersecurity threats and emit radiation. But however you feel about these smart meters, we're pretty much stuck with them if we want to live in modern society. But there are steps for those can take who are concerned with the health risks. As I write this, or as I say this rather now, several states, for an additional monthly charge, allow customers to opt out of smart meter technology, and you can go back to your 90s analog meter. But I'm guessing that's going to be phased out in the next few years. You can check your local utility companies for more details. If not, they might at least tell you how they're collecting data, such as do they use RF signals every 15 minutes, or do they use power line communication once an hour, or whatever it is. You may be able to find that on their websites, or if you give them a call, they'll tell you. But if all else fails, there are other steps you can take to help you sleep at night. I poked around online for a little bit, and I found these RF readers of varying prices and quality that you can determine how much and how often your signals emit from your smart reader. But buyer beware, who knows how accurate these things are. Perhaps if you got a professional one, you could tell, but who knows. I'm just saying they're out there. There's even companies that make these Faraday cages that you can fit around your smart meter to reduce radiation emissions. But the thought that comes to mind for me is that if this thing blocks the power company from getting their signal of your usage, they're probably going to come and knock on your door, throw a fine on your next bill, or cut off your service until you remove the device. Who knows? Because whenever you signed up for power, you agreed probably that you would not tamper with the device, which would include putting a Faraday cage over it. Other people are taking other steps, such as painting their interior walls with RF blocking paint or hanging RF resistant blankets on the wall. You can even find these RF throw blankets like you would put on your couch or your bed. And there's a whole industry on this stuff. And that's part of the argument that the pro smart meter crowd has, is that these companies are taking advantage of scared or concerned people and selling them stuff that they don't really need. But even if these smart meters aren't dangerous to our health, they still collect a ton of our data, which expose us to privacy breaches and security concerns. On a more dystopian note, if tech companies are willing to work with the government to spy on Americans and censor them from the public square, as we saw in the Twitter files, in what ways might rogue admins collude with utility companies using a smart grid? I hate to be a tinfoil myself, but I can't help but cringe when, quote, experts call something, quote, safe and effective. Well, that's going to do it for this version of NPC Overrider. I'm your lead engineer, Greg. Thanks so much for stopping by. But what about you? What do you think? Do you think that these smart meters are boogeymen in the backyard, or are they just another snowflake in the avalanche in creating a smart society? Or is this much ado about nothing? If you have any ideas for a future release or have any feedback for me, please open up a ticket in the comments section. But for now, we're going to grab ourselves a beer and sign off for the day. Have a good one.